Welcome back. In this video I have a little challenge for you, and that is to create a UI which will just be a little area here on which you have a button, and once you click the button you restart the game. So the UI should appear once we hit a bump. So once we lost the game, so to speak, the UI will appear, and then once you click on the button in the center of your screen, the game will restart. So basically the scene will reset. So you can definitely build that by yourself at this point. You should be able to do so. I hope that you will pause the video now and try this for yourself. And once you're done, you can watch this video, of course, and see how I implemented it. All right, so let's get started. So the first thing that we will need is going to be a new button, but then you could use just a button and just a text. But what I would like to do is I will like to create a panel first. So I'm going to call this one GameOver panel. This GameOver panel will pretty much be like a parent or like a container in which I would like them to add the other UI elements. So here you can see that the GameOver panel is like a layer that is on top of my screen. And I would like to change its scale. So we could just change the scale to 0.5 here. In all directions, something like this, and then maybe a little bigger would also be fine, maybe something like 0.7, like so. The Z coordinate doesn't really matter, this can be 1, doesn't make a difference. So inside of this game over panel I would like to have a text which says game over text. And by the way, if you solve this differently, it's totally fine. I mean, as long as you have the result you wanted and you can play the game now and reset the game, you're good, you're golden. Okay, so here this will be the game over text, and this text will just say game over. Okay, let's make it significantly larger, something like 120. Let's overflow in both directions. So here the font size should be, maybe even more would be good, 180 or even 250. Yeah, that looks good. Now I would like it to be positioned a little further towards the top. And it should be inside of my game over panel, right? It is, as it is here inside of it in terms of the hierarchy here. But now let's change the position of our text, and I would like it to be aligned towards the center and here also towards the center. But at the same time, I'm going to change the Y position a little bit. So I would like it to be a little higher. So let's see what looks like a good value. I believe something around that, so something around 400 for the Y coordinate should be good to go. And now let's actually add the button. Okay, so I said I would like to have a button first, but then I ended up adding the button last. So I'm going to call this one game over button, or maybe replay button is a better name because that's what it should say. Okay, let's change the size of this button because it's way too small. So in my case, something around 700 probably will be good for the width, and height 300, and the text will say, so let's go over to the text here, replay, like so. Now of course we need to change the font size, so 150 seems like a valid number. All right, now we can also play around with the background color of my replay button. Okay, so here let's change it to, I don't know, maybe like a slide red here, replay, like so. Okay, now you could of course reposition the button. You could put it a little lower or something like that, because currently it is all quite close together. So change the Y coordinate down by, let's say, 100 pixels, maybe even 150. So 1 is 150. Looks like a good value, I'd say. Now, of course, I want this button to do something. So what is it that I want to do? Well, I want to replay the game or restart the game. Therefore, let's go over into our game manager script here. And let's make sure that we have a method that will allow us to reset the game. So here, what I'm going to say is public void restart game. And there are many different ways how we can restart the game. But how I'm going to do it is I'm just going to reload the current scene. Therefore, as always, we need to have the scene manager first. So using Unity Engine dot scene management, like so. And then we can use the scene manager in order to get active scene. So let's get the active scene, like so. And we can then use the scene to load it. And here we can, for example, load the name. So this will give us the name of the current scene. But the scene manager has a method that loads a scene, right? So we had the scene manager dot load scene method that needs either an index number or it needs to have the scene name, for example. That's exactly what we get here. Okay, so this is how you can reload the current scene in one line. So here, get active scene dot name inside of the load scene method. So we're passing the name of the current scene, of the active scene, and we're passing it to the load scene, which will then load the current scene. If you want, you can also load the scene asynchronously using the load scene async, which will load the scene in the background, and only once it's loaded, it will display it. But I think in our case, load scene should be fine because it's a very simple scene. There's not much going on. So let's save the game manager, and now we want to call this method once we clicked on the replay button. So if you have not implemented everything before you watch this video, I would like you to at least pause the video now and try to implement the click functionality for our replay button to replay the game or reset the game using the restart game method. Okay, I hope you tried it. So here inside of our replay button, we have at the bottom this on click list, and here we want to load the game manager. So here, game manager, and the game manager has a game manager script assigned to it, which has this restart game method, which will then restart the game. So let's run it again. And we can see that it's still there. If we reset the game, you can see it basically works. So the replay works. But now we just need to make sure that this game over panel will also be deactivated by default. So that's why I created a panel, because then I can activate or deactivate something with ease. So all of the items that are inside of this game over panel will automatically be deactivated at the same time, which is exactly what I wanted. So now let's go ahead and go over to our game manager to make sure that this game manager is aware of the game over panel and can activate and deactivate it. So what would be a good moment to activate it? Well, I would say once the bomb is hit. So let's do that. So we're going to say here at the top, public game object, and I'm going to call this one game over panel. And inside of my on bomb hit, once I time scaled everything, or just before it, I'm just going to make sure that this is set to active, true, like so. The game over panel will be set to active true, and this will then display our game over panel, which then allows us to press the reset button, which will restart the game. Okay, so now something else that I would like to show you real quick is you can use a header here, for example. So a property attribute, there are a bunch of attributes that you can use. We used the serialized field, for example, before, but there is also this header where you can then even give a name. So for example, these are the score elements, like so. And then let me use this a little further down. Here, I'm going to use the game over elements, like so. So let me save this script and you will see what this header does in a second. So after it's loaded inside of Unity, you will notice that now we have these beautiful texts here. So here score elements, which is this header. And then we have the game over elements. So it's a lot easier to manage your different objects that you can select here and the parameters that you can change. So now we of course need to have a game over panel there, and let's drag the game over panel over and let's start the game. So let's see if we can activate the game over panel once we hit a bomb. So let's kill a couple of bananas first. There we are, we destroyed the bomb. The game stopped, so the speed went to 0, the time scale. And we have this layer here, this game over panel, which has this replay button. And we can click the button, it will reset the entire game for us. Now, at this point, we have a little problem. And that is that even if we restart the game, the timescale is still set to 0. So our game is never actually being properly restarted, so to speak. Okay. What we need to make sure is that our game is going to be set back to a speed of 1, because currently the timescale is set to 0 because we set it up in our on bomb hit here. We set the timescale to 0. So what we need to do is we need to make sure we set the timescale back to 1 at this point. So let's save this once again. And let's run our game. Let's spawn some fruits. Let's destroy the bomb once it appears. There we are. Let's replay. And we can see we are back in the game here. And for some reason, the Unity editor is again showing a different lighting that happens, unfortunately. Oh, a lot of bombs coming, bananas coming from the same spot this time. So let's see if it works once again. Once we destroyed a banana or a bomb. So there we are. Let's replay. And we can see the bananas are still popping up. Okay, so now our game is at a workable state. We can play the game, we can lose the game. We have a score. Well, we don't have a high score yet, but we're going to take care of the high score in the next video. Now, of course, you could say, Dennis, hey, the replay button, I don't like the color. I would like to use the same color that I used there. That's totally fine as well. So now it will look a little more like the best score up there. So it really depends on what kind of style you prefer. All right, that's it for this video. See you in the next one.